Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of the Amateur in the Morning. I am your host, the Forex Amateur. Today is officially the 1st of December, so we've come to the end of the year. I hope everybody has had a blessed trading day yesterday, and we're going to get straight into the order of business for this morning. Before I do, let me just throw in my disclaimer. Remember, I am not qualified to offer financial, investment, or trading advice. Everything I speak about on these sessions is purely my own opinion. Trades that I take are trades that I take with cash that I am willing to risk. So ensure that if you make any trade decisions on your side, it's based on information that you've researched, analysis that you've done, and with cash that you are willing to risk, because you could lose your entire investment. Also, remember, I do not recommend any specific trade or action. Cool. So let's get straight into it. As you know, I like to break down my view on the synthetic indices market, on the NASDAQ equity and the dollar index futures market. So we're going to start with, what my primary focus is on, which is on synthetic indices. I honestly do not trade currencies or NASDAQ at the moment. Because I am getting my fill for the day on synthetic indices. Only if synthetics are not moving that well, then only do I move over to perhaps a currency chart like GBP, JPY, or gold, or even NASDAQ, right? So those are the things that I look at if synthetics are not giving me too good of opportunities. Okay, cool. So as you can see, even based on the type of other instruments that I trade other than synthetics, I like high energy markets, high volume, high momentum markets. So GJ, you could get your 200 pips a day. Gold, you could get your even 500 pips a day. NASDAQ, 500 pips is like nothing. So I like high energy, high momentum markets, and that is why those are the instruments I look at if synthetics are not moving according to plan. But let's not go around the bush, through the bush, and over the bush. Let's just get straight into the order of business and let's talk about volatility 75. So yesterday on volatility 75, I did say that there's a much higher opportunity that we'll get a retest to around this level in here, this broken structure. And we'll see price sort of being drawn up into around this area. Overall, my analysis has not changed on here. I'm still looking to see price trade up. If it trades into this yellow block, I would really, really look forward to that, because that's where I will be looking to take a sell from that level. You just get where my annotator so you can see where I'm referencing. So we spoke about this area yesterday, and I did say I want to see it come into here, and then I'm looking to take a sell. You can see we've got like a major head and shoulders pattern that's sort of playing out in here, right? So I do see that playing out very often. Not that I trade head and shoulders, but it does complement my strategy very well. So if I see a head and shoulders like this playing out, then I do take advantage of it. Now we can see this little channel that formed in here, right? This channel in here, and you can see that price is still sitting inside of this channel. Now we're about to get our, say, third test, if you can consider all these others, perhaps one, two, three tests, perhaps one, two, and that would be the third test, perhaps, if you could consider it that way. I'm not really sure how people trade channels, but I don't trade channels. I'm just pointing it out. So looking at this, I would like to see price sort of pop over here, and then I'll be looking for a sell down into this area with a stop loss, say, above this area in here, and my TP down in there, right? So that's a really nice long ass sell that I'm looking to take on volatility 75. Let's just move over to the 8-4 chart and see if there's anything worth referencing. Now, I did identify yesterday this bit of structure here that's being respected, right? I actually caught a buy on here yesterday from down in here, which I've also posted on my social. So if you like, you can go and check that out as well. So I did catch a buy up in here, and I was actually targeting to take it up into my daily level that I spoke about, the yellow block at the top. But unfortunately, I identified this bit of structure in here that was struggling to break. So this morning, when price pulled back up into here, this is where I sort of closed my position. And I was happy to do so because I caught it from here up into there. It was very minimum risk. So it's like a 1 to 2 type of trade, right? So looking at today, we can see this channel in here as well, this bit of a, I don't know, what is it called, an ascending triangle, something like that. Not even sure if it's a continuation pattern. I think it is a continuation pattern though. So we've got 1, 2, 3 touches here, failed to make a third touch on the top, pulled back, failed to make a third touch down here. So price is sort of squeezing, which means that when we get a breakout, we'll most likely get a very powerful breakout either to the upside or the downside. But I am still looking for upward pushes, right? Because my high probability sell comes from that level that I marked up on the daily chart. Let's just have a look at the 1 hour chart and see if there's anything different on the 1 hour. So looking at the 1 hour, we can still see that we're still consolidating in this level in here, right? So we've got this consolidation in here. We've got a bit of a fake breakout and then price broke back into that consolidation. So right now, I wouldn't be looking to take any trades unless I can see good buying opportunities to the upside, because I am buy biased on this market. Until price breaks out of this levels in here, then only will I make decisions in terms of which direction I want to trade in. But like I said, I am leaning towards the buy side of this market. Let's move on to volatility 25-1S, which has actually been moving very, very well. As I said yesterday, I did send out a sell last week to the paid group on the specific level, and we did get activated with this wick in here. Yesterday, I did see a re-entry opportunity as well. So if we drop down to the H4 chart, we'll see right in here, right? So yes, excuse me. So yesterday I did see a re-entry opportunity right here with price coming back to retest this structure in here that has not been retested. You can see we've got a bit of a supply zone in there, and as you can see, price has actually shut down from around there. So just to show you this, you can see that we've got this entry right in here. Okay, cool. So what am I looking at doing with this market? I'm looking at, as I said yesterday, I'm looking at taking it down to this level for first TP, and then there's this level right down here for second TP at that area. But I will be more than happy to get out at this area and here, because remember, on the higher time frames, I have been speaking about, when I look at the weekly chart, I have been speaking about possible buy opportunities and price possibly continuing to the upside. As you can see, we've got very clear bullish structure on here. We've broken this significant lower high to the upside. We've formed a higher low, and we've broken this higher high, right? So we've broken this higher high to the upside. So price could be at minimum, could be coming back to retest around in the structure in here, and then perhaps pushing back to the upside, right? Overall, I have been looking for sells from here to the downside, right? But I'm not really going to try and push my luck in this instance. And I'm going to try and take as much as possible until I get the good enough confirmations that the sell is on the long-term sell, which does look like it is possible right now, right? But I don't want to push it much further than I need to. So if price does keep falling, because I've got a really good entry here, and on my other account, I've got another entry up in here. If price does keep pushing back to the downside and continues, then I'll simply hold the trade for as long as it does allow me to. And as we break new structures, I'll most probably trail my stop loss. Let's move on to volatility 50. Looking at volatility 50, yesterday we did speak about, I think we did speak about price coming back into maybe this area in here and then pushing down to here, or price continuing back to the downside. One of those two, I can't really recall what our specific conversation was yesterday. But looking at this area in here, we can see price reacted really strongly to the structure that I had highlighted over here, giving us a bit of a double bottom type of feel to this market. Not really convinced that that is it, to be very frank. I'm actually thinking that we most likely come back into this level, maybe come back into this zone in here before we push back to the downside. I am currently in a few buys on here that I've taken from the bottom down here, and another buy that I've actually just entered today based off this H4 structure being broken in here. It's a bit of a lazy ass entry, right? Because I didn't really wait for confirmations or anything. I'm actually anticipating, because we broke our structure in here, right? So we came down, formed this low, formed this lower high, came down, failed to form a lower low. So that's showing a depletion of bearish momentum. And we see price breaking above the lower high as well. So that's showing a transition to bullish momentum. We then see price coming and forming a possible higher low at this point, which will be confirmed by the closure of this H4 candle. So if this H4 candle does close to the upside, hopefully above the high of this candle, then we'll most likely see price sort of trade much higher, and I will most likely be aiming to take profits at around this gray zone in here, or even at this previous high that we've got in this area here, because we can see that this is a very, sorry, mom. Oh, wow. Apologies for that. Let's just remove that. All right, so we can see that we've got this supply zone in here, which will most likely give price a bit of a push. It might not come all the way back down, but it will give it a bit of a rejection. So I'd much rather be safe than sorry. And we get in, we get out at this area in here, and then we wait perhaps for confirmations for sales from there back to the downside. And we'll see what happens in that instance. So let's move on to volatility 10. Looking at volatility 10, I did say that yesterday I would actually more keen on looking at buying opportunities for yesterday, pushing this market back to the upside. And as you can see, that actually played out very well, but I'm really not trading this chart at the moment because I have a conflicting view of the weekly and the daily chart. And if I have a conflicting view, I tend to just stay away completely, right? But looking at this for today, we can see, looking at this for today, we can see a false breakout above that high, right? And we can see price pulling back into the high. So if we can get a candle closure to the downside on the lower time frames, obviously, then we can look maybe for some selling opportunities back to the downside, perhaps targeting this previous structure right in here, where we'll most likely see some demand coming in from that level, right? Or we could even target somewhere in here, and we could see price probably pulling up from around that area in there. Another thing we can look at is we can perhaps pull a fib from this level here to that level there. Even though we don't really have a structure break, this is looking like a nice high volume impulse, especially since we had this big bearish push to the downside, and this push has basically come right back and consumed it, right? So if you were to look at this, perhaps, let's see if we can look at it on the weekly chart. It should be a bullish engulfing candle, right? So the bullish engulfing candle right here. So this candle was bearish, next candle was bullish, and it engulfed the previous candle, right? So that's showing us a willingness to go higher, right? I have been buy bias on this market since the bottom in here. Haven't gotten the prime entry that I would like to hold on the long term, but I have been scalping it in and out as time does progress. So let's move on from volatility 10 over to the dollar index. Dollar index actually moved beautifully. So yesterday we had an amazing opportunity to drop down to the intraday chart to show you guys what my thoughts were on intraday, and that actually played out really beautifully. So if you were able to take advantage of that, congratulations on that. If not, go back and watch yesterday's episode and look at what you missed out on. All right, so let's look at the dollar index futures. So looking at the daily chart, we can see, as I've been calling ever since this level in here, I've been calling that, not even since this level, actually from much higher, from around this area, because I started on 16th of November. So this is where I started looking at this chart right here. Is that the 16th? 13th? This is the 16th, sorry. So this candle right here. So since here, I have been calling that price will be drawn towards this low and lastly come into this yellow block. So we've basically been able to predict the or call out. It's not really prediction, right? Prediction sounds a bit egotistical, but we've been able to call that price will come down into this area. Now, looking at this for today, we can see that price has tapped into this level that I've been speaking about, and I have been saying that we will see bullish momentum out of this level. As you can see on yesterday's candle, we did have a huge bullish influx right in there, pushing price back to the upside. Overall, from here, I am looking to see the market sort of pull back into around these levels in here, right? So we have this level of supply right here, this level of supply right in here as well, which was retested sort of, which means that there's a much higher likelihood that price would even keep going higher, right? But we're not looking to predict too far into the future. We're looking at just being able to work with the range. So for now, the range that we're looking at is this range in there. So let's move on to the H4 chart and let's have a look at how that played out. So looking at the H4 chart as well, you can see that we had this big bullish impulse yesterday, right, coming into the market. We haven't really broken any key structure on the H4 chart, right, because this was, let's just grab this tool here. All actually have it on the chart. This tool here, let's just put this right in here, right? So this was the last structure that was broken. Actually, I believe that this was the H1 that I was marking up, right? So this was the last structure that was created in terms of a swing high to create this swing low, right? So in order for price to be bullish on the higher time frames, we would have to see it break the structure, but we did anticipate that it would most likely be drawn towards that structure. Another thing I think I spoke about as well was this trend line right in here. And as you can see, price sort of broke above that trend line. So we'll most likely get maybe a retest, but I really don't trade trend lines. Let's just move on to the 1 hour chart and we can speak a bit more about what we spoke about yesterday. So yesterday I did speak about this specific level right in here, right in here, where I said, okay, this was the last high that was created. A break above this high with a bullish engulfing candle close should be able to tell us. And as you can see, we did get a push up, but we didn't get a candle close because immediately it came back into here. So this wasn't confirmed. We came right back down in here, and that is where we got our confirmation right in here with this big push to the upside, right? So obviously on the lower time frame, you would have been able, like on the 15-minute chart, you would have been able to see it much sooner, right? Because right in here, we've got this bullish engulfing candle close here. We've got this bullish engulfing candle close here as well. I don't really look at candlestick patterns when I take trades, right? I did also speak about this area. Once this high gets broken, then it's a confirmation that price is most likely going to trade higher. On this time frame, on 1 hour, we can see that we had a candle close above this high, right? So this candle right here. Sorry, my technology is not cooperating today. So this candle close right here is much higher than these candle closes here, right? So you can see it is a bit skew, forgive me, but we can see that there's a big likelihood that price of perhaps maybe come back and retest some of this broken structure here, right in this area here, and then most likely continue back to the upside. So overall, I'm still seeing a bullish dollar for the remainder of today or tomorrow, right? Or going into tomorrow, who knows, right? So looking at here, we did speak about selling opportunities on the NASDAQ yesterday. As you can see in yesterday's daily candle, we opened here, we traded all the way down to here, and we went bullish from there. That does complement what actually happened on the dollar index. So if we go down to, let's look at the 4-hour chart, and then I'll compare the two charts. If we look at the 4-hour chart, we can see that, remember yesterday, I did say that if you actually look at it on the daily, I've marked the zone. There's the zone right in here. I did say that we'll most likely come back to retest this broken structure and then go bullish from that level. So you can see that that actually played out really well. Going into today, we'll actually expect it to keep going higher, right? Because I'm expecting a pullback on dollar index as well. So I did explain there is a correlation between the two. So looking at this, we'll actually expect it to go much higher today, perhaps even break above this high, which I have been speaking about as well since the 16th of November. Since this level here, I've been speaking about a pullback, respecting this level, and I did say we'll be targeting this area. So if you actually bought on the 18th and you just held your trade, you'd be crazy ass profits right now. Let's move on to the 4-hour chart. You can see that structure right here, right? That was broken to the upside with that push. Right, structure right in here that was broken by this push to the upside, retested, but I wasn't convinced. I did say we'd most likely come back to it yesterday and go up. So overall today, perhaps we will see a pullback into around this area here, which is very unlikely. Maybe we'll see it later on in the day, but if it does happen, then we can still look for buys from this level. If not, then we can just continue looking for buys as it goes up on the lower time frames. Let's drop down to the H1 chart. Right now, you can see in here, right, there's a bit of a correlation. So I've actually added the dollar index chart in here, right? So looking at this, we can see at this point here, right, the market was, so NASDAQ was going up from this point here, and the dollar index was going down, right? We can see at this point here, NASDAQ was going up, and look at down here, from here, the dollar index was going down, right? We can see from this point here, this was going down, and they were both going down at the same time, but at this point, right from here, right, actually they weren't going down at the same time. So from the second candle right here, you can see that NASDAQ is going down and the dollar index is going up, right? Looking at this area in here, you can see that NASDAQ started going up, the dollar index started going down, and then it immediately pumped back up. As I said, it's not something that I've really tested per se, but it is something that I have noticed. Looking at yesterday as well, if you look at yesterday, you can see that dollar index was shooting down, NASDAQ was shooting to the upside, right? So you can see that there is a bit of a correlation between the two, but it's not really something that I really focus on, but it is something that I have noticed or seen happening very, very often, okay? So that's a bit of a teachable moment right in there. And I believe that I'm actually done for today. So on that note, I'd like to leave you guys with that bit of knowledge for today. And it's been a pleasure, as always, to share with you guys. And I am wishing you a blessed and profitable trading day. Catch up with you same time, same place tomorrow.